Hi, I'm Dr. Dave Janda. Welcome back to Operation Freedom Briefings. The goal of these briefings and my weekly radio show is to provide you information the bought-off lamestream fake media will not touch, and today is no different. It is a little bit of a different format today. I recently had the honor of interviewing Charles Woods, who's the father of Ty Woods. There were 4 victims in Benghazi. Ambassador Stevens, Sean Smith, Glenn Doherty, and Ty Woods. This is an interview I did for our subscription platform at davejanda.com. This is the type of work we do on the subscription side of the service. The subscribers felt that the interview was so important and the information so important and revealing, information that the bought-off lamestream fake media has not touched, that it be shared with our entire YouTube audience. And I agreed with them. And actually, they are very generous. If it were not for the subscribers, this YouTube channel, my radio show, and the platform, davejanda.com, not only the subscriber side, but the free side, the public side, would not exist. And I thank them for giving me clearance for sharing this information and this interview with you. Charles Woods is an American hero, as was his son. The story of Benghazi, long story short. It was a weapons-running operation run by the Obama administration, overseen by Hillary Clinton. Their point man on the ground was Ambassador Chris Stevens. He essentially became the first ambassador to Al-Qaeda. That's right, Al-Qaeda. On our show, we've had the honor of having a number of members of the Citizens Commission on Benghazi share with us their information and their analysis, as well as on our subscription side platform, as well in our Insider Insight show. General Paul Vallely, General Tom McInerney, Claire Lopez, former CIA analyst, and Admiral Ace Lyons, who recently passed away. They outlined the scenario of what led to the 4 Americans to be left and to be killed by the Obama administration and by Hillary Clinton, who was then Secretary of State. As I mentioned, Benghazi was a weapons-running operation. The weapons were being run under the guise and the guidance, if you will, of Obama and Clinton, with Ambassador Stevens as their point man. And weapons were run to Al-Qaeda to take out Gaddafi. And then once Gaddafi was murdered and the country thrown into chaos, those weapons were then reversed. And Stevens were funneling them through Turkey into Syria to weaponize that wonderful organization that we know as ISIS. This precisely is what got General Michael Flynn into trouble. He was the director of the Defense Intelligence Agency under Obama in the later years. And he testified behind closed doors to a congressional committee about what really happened in Benghazi, about the fact that the Obama administration was actually weaponizing ISIS. This is what led to him to be targeted. He was fired by Obama once that testimony got out behind the curtain. And the one person that Obama recommended when he met with Donald Trump after President Trump was elected president, the one person he recommended President Trump not hire was General Flynn. And the reason? Because he was the only one who was willing to tell the truth. This is a very important interview. I hope you'll share it. The information presented by Charles Woods about his son, about the other 3 American victims, about the 35 Americans who were saved by Ty Woods and Glenn Doherty, will never be seen, heard, or experienced through the bought-off lamestream fake media. I thank you for your time, and now let's turn to Charles Woods and his very compelling information. Hi, I'm Dr. Dave Janda. Welcome back to our Insider Insight show. I have a very special guest with us today who is an incredible patriot. In fact, his entire family is dedicated to our country, to your freedoms, to your liberties. It's my honor to have with us Charles Woods, the father of Ty Woods. A couple things. it is evident that individuals in Congress, individuals in our government, want to sweep September 12th, September 11th and September 12th, 2012, and what happened to our country under the rug. They don't want the facts to come out. They don't want the information to come out to you, the American public, and to the world public. On that fateful day, on September 11, 2012, and September 12th, the next day, September 12th, 2012, 4 Americans died. And Ty Woods, Glenn Doherty, Sean Smith, and Chris Stevens, who was the ambassador in Libya. Barack Obama was president. Hillary Clinton was Secretary of State. On our show, on a number of occasions, we've had the opportunity to have Mike Igmeyer with us, who is the uncle of one of the fallen, Sean Smith. And today I'm honored to have the father of Ty Woods, Charles Woods, with us. Now, a little background first on Ty, because and then Charles will expound further, but just so you have a background of Ty Woods, the person. He was a native of Oregon. He was a wrestler in high school, a lover of adventure, and Ty joined the Navy at 18 years of age and became a Navy SEAL. If you will, in my opinion, one of the highest callings in our armed services. He had a legendary career as a SEAL, rising to the rank of Senior Chief Petty Officer, serving several decorated combat tours in Iraq and Afghanistan, and received many, many awards. He was also, many people don't realize this, a registered nurse and paramedic, and he was said to have, direct quote, the hands of a healer and the arms of a warrior. His final mission was when he actually joined, after he retired from the SEALs, he joined the CIA in the summer of 2010, which was really an ideal fit for the CIA. And Ty served all over the world protecting CIA officers and officials. It is my honor to have with us someone who is an incredibly courageous individual, as was his son, as is the entirety of his family, because they continue to hold the government and people in the government's feet to the fire about elucidating what really happened on September 11th and September 12th, 2012. It's my honor to have with us Charles Woods. Charles, welcome to the Insider Insight Show.
Thank you.
Well, Charles, you are now based in Hawaii, the beautiful state of Hawaii, and you spent some time in the water this morning.
Well, every morning we go out and we paddle about 4 miles in those large 12-man Hawaiian canoes. And this morning, we have one of the people I paddle with. Every morning he's got a new joke. And so I asked Rick, I said, Rick, I'm not a very good speaker, but they always say that a good public speaker starts off with a joke. I've never done this on an interview before, but Rick, do you have a joke about Benghazi? Immediately, one of the people came back, I have a joke about Benghazi. And I said, what? He says, yeah. What caused Benghazi? A video? And I just laughed. And I said, this is incredible. Everyone in the world knows that that lame excuse that it was caused by a video was just a joke. And it's not a joke. It's serious because my son died and because there was no rescue attempt. And I would really like for the government not to tell us jokes anymore, not to tell us lies, but to tell us the truth. Why was Ty and the others not rescued? Now, it's always been a principle that you never leave anyone behind. And you don't have to get permission from the White House, whether it was in Vietnam in a rice paddy where there was a downed soldier that needed to be rescued by a helicopter. You didn't have to go to the White House and get permission. You go out and you rescue. The night that this happened, everything was on live feed by a drone video. We had permission to use the airspace for a video drone, a Predator that could have been armed with a Hellfire missile that would have taken care of business, And someone in command told General Ham not to rescue. How do we know this? Okay, Jason Chaffetz, congressman, very honorable person. Immediately afterwards, he went over to Libya with General Ham, and on several occasions, he asked General Ham about why no rescue. And General Ham said, I had assets immediately available in the area, but I was not allowed to use them. Multiple times. I was looking forward to when General Ham would testify publicly. And finally, he was cross-examined publicly by Jason Chaffetz, who is totally honorable. And General Ham, someone apparently got to him. He changed his story, not just once, but 3 times. And this is what Jason Chaffetz, congressman, said. He said, General Ham, I have met you on 3 different occasions, and on 3 different occasions you have given me 3 different stories. Okay, why doesn't the government come clean? Who was it in the White House? Who was it in the Situation Room? There are only 3 people that could have overruled a 4-star general and not to rescue. One would be the president, who was Obama, who people do say is a Sunni Muslim. Number 2 would have been the Secretary of Defense. Number 3 would have been the Secretary of State, Hillary Clinton. Who was it that said, don't rescue? Because there were, according to General Ham, assets immediately available. Now, as was reported in the media immediately afterwards, was that in the middle of this battle, General Ham was relieved of his duties, and he was replaced by a 4-star general by the name of Rodriguez. Okay, the government again put out a joke, which no one's going to believe, that this was a pre-arranged, pre-scheduled change of command. Well, first of all, you don't change a command in the middle of a battle. Number 2, you don't change a command from a 4-star general in charge of all of Africa, huge area, with a 2-star general. So that was just a joke. And anyone that thinks twice about it knows it was a joke and just a liar. Will the government please come forward? Now, we've forgiven everyone that's involved with the death of my son, but justice and integrity requires that we find out who it was that gave this order not to rescue. And so far, that has not happened. We need to have that. Think of the morale of the troops. Always been a guarantee that no one's going to be left behind. That rice paddy that has a fallen soldier in it, he knows that they're going to come and rescue him. This case, assets immediately available in the area, no rescue. And how do we know that this was not a spontaneous attack? Immediately, because Ty was killed by a mortar. A mortar is not spontaneous. It has to be chalked in, it has to be set up ahead of time, and ahead of time, there have to be the coordinates for the exact location of the target. That's not spontaneous. We had General Petraeus, head of the CIA at one time. Immediately, he would have known, not spontaneous. It was a mortar, had to be planned in advance. There were military people in the Situation Room. Immediately, they would know, mortar attack, not spontaneous.
Charles, when was the last time you spoke to Ty before he died?
Okay, right before he left, we talked, and the conversation was this, was Ty, for the 20 years before you retired, I prayed for your safety, but I never felt that anything major was going to happen, that you were really going to be injured. But I said, this time it's completely different.
Wow.
If there's any way that you can get out of this, do. And he said, Dad, I can't tell you who I'm working for. Ended up being the CIA and Hillary. And he said, but they never like to lose anyone, so don't worry about me. And I says, cover your back and get return as soon as you can. Now, I don't know why, but that was just my premonition. And what had happened, he was actually supposed to have come home in August, but one of the people he worked with, his dad from the state of Washington, contacted him. There's archery season for elk, and wanted his son to come back and go archery hunting. Okay, Ty, when he was like 5 years old, we moved to a 9,000-acre cattle ranch in eastern Oregon. I've taken Ty hunting so many times, and Ty knew the importance of hunting with your dad. So, being the person that he was, he says, I'll take your place. You go hunt with your dad. And he was supposed to come back 6 days later because he had a brand new baby at home. He had told them, this is the last time I'm going to take an assignment, and don't bother to call me again. And 6 more days, he would have been home. That never happened because an authority that were in the White House that night gave the command, do not rescue.
I mentioned in my introduction about Ty that he was a nurse and a paramedic.
Yes.
Charles, I had heard that some reports that before this attack occurred, like a day or two before, right, Ty was concerned about what he was seeing in the environment around him.
Exactly. The people there knew that if they were attacked, they would not survive that attack. And some of them had even said, we don't even know if we're going to make it through the night. Okay. And so what he did immediately before this was he called everyone together and says, an attack is imminent. I need to train every one of you how to treat open wounds in case someone showed them how to do tourniquets, showed them how to pack wounds to prevent the bleeding. He even took out ketchup, squirted it on different people. Okay, now go to work, do the tourniquet, do the packing of the wounds. That was immediately before the attack. They knew it was going to happen. If they knew it in Benghazi, they sure knew it in Washington, D.C. And Washington, D.C. did nothing except say, we're not going to rescue.
And there are reports that he just didn't keep his feelings and other people didn't keep their feelings to themselves in Benghazi. They, in fact, did let Washington know that there were problems. And in fact, it's my understanding that for several weeks prior to the attack, the State Department, led by Hillary Clinton, was actually removing protection.
Exactly. Every time that they made requests for more protection, there actually were Marines there at one time. More people were withdrawn. Every time another government said, this is too dangerous, we're getting all of our people out of Benghazi, we stayed. They knew exactly what was going to happen. They kept withdrawing. And what it was like holding out a red piece of meat in front of a predator.
Now, Charles, it's my understanding there was the mission facility where the ambassador was, and then Ty was at a separate location at the annex.
Yes.
And the attacks on September 11th happened at the mission facility where the ambassador was. Ty and I believe Glenn Doherty had realized this attack was occurring. Now, tell me if I'm wrong. Fought their way over to the mission facility to try to help the ambassador and those that were there. Could not find the ambassador, but actually got 35 people, it's my understanding, out of harm's way from the mission facility, got them back to the annex. Ty and Glenn Doherty were defending the annex from the rooftop, and that's when the mortar hit.
Yeah, exactly.
And the time, and Charles, how long did this go on? This firefight?
Well, the movie is 13 hours altogether, so that's a good approximation. And I recommend that anyone see that movie because that movie is the truth about what happened. That movie is based upon the contractors, who are honorable people, what they said. And I've met them. I went, to the premiere, got a chance to visit with the people that were with Ty when he passed. And that's the truth about what happened. Now, and the thing is, what's crazy is if Hillary and the president and all that sort of stuff had just come out with the truth, they would have been heroes. They would have been heroes in the White House. Look, this is the people that we hire. This is the type of people that we are, and that's why we have these people working for us. They could have been heroes. Instead, they're goats. And those people will go down in infamy because they lied to the American people. And everyone in the United States knows that the excuses they gave are just a joke.
Charles, when we first started this interview, you spoke about General Ham, who was in charge of AFRICOM, that region of the world for the military. You mentioned when he had a conversation with Jason Chaffetz initially when they went over to Libya, General Ham said something to Jason Chaffetz, and that entails there's this 13-hour firefight going on.
Exactly.
Right? And he said something. What did he say to Jason Chaffetz?
Okay. Now, Jason Chaffetz, I have his home phone number. I've talked to him as he's on his way with his family to go to Disneyland and things like that. Wonderful, wonderful, concerned man.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Mm-hmm. That's why he went over there. He talked to General Ham, and his words were basically, and he said several times he talked to him, mm-hmm. and he said, I had the assets immediately available in the area. That's the quote he gave me, but he was never authorized to use them.
And is that why he was relieved of his command that you spoke of earlier?
Well, okay. I've talked to a lot of people, and so it'd be hearsay as an attorney. It's hearsay. But I know of at least one general who has told me that this is what happened. He was told not to rescue. His words were, quote unquote, I don't talk like this normally, but he said, screw it. And at that point, within minutes, he was relieved and replaced by a 2-star general.
A 4-star replaced by a 2-star.
Exactly. That doesn't happen. That's not scheduled in advance.
Okay. No, it doesn't.
Another joke told by our government. Our government should be a bastion of credibility.
Have you ever met General Ham?
No. I'd love to, and I'd love to visit with him.
He's never reached out to you?
Well, no. I mean, of course not. But if he contacts you, you can give him my phone number, and I'd be more than
I surely will.
Talk to. I'd love to. I'd fly back there just to have a meal with him and talk.
Charles, when your son was brought home, the 4 victims, it's my understanding they kept the families separated. Is that true?
Yeah, we went out to Andrews Air Force Base, and we didn't even know why, but they had us in all these buses and took us out there. Large area, each one of the 4 families, there was kind of a pod, a little area, huge room. We were served hors d'oeuvres and all that, and then there were couches, and then each family was in a particular area. What happened is all these important people started walking around like Panetta. I didn't know what he looked like, but I knew this guy was powerful. Yeah, he was walking around. Joe Biden was walking around. Hillary, they came to each one of these little pods and talked to us individually.
Why? Why individual? Why didn't that seem odd?
No, not really. I actually thought it was an honor.
Okay.
What I realized later was just a publicity stunt.
Yeah.
Because afterwards we went over to an airplane hangar, and the TV cameras were there, and they made a big deal of it, and yeah. But
Charles,
no, it was just basically propaganda. That's why when Hillary came up to me.
Yes, that's my next question.
Okay,
what did these officials say to you, Charles?
Okay, well, with Hillary, and I did write this, I keep a little notebook.
And you're an attorney by trade and a former administrative judge, I should add, so you are a stickler for details.
Well, okay, yeah, so in my pocket, I always joke, I keep my brains in my pocket. So I have this little black book. I've been using these for years. I just got a new one for 2019. And I write down the momentous things that happened. Okay. And I've shown that, and pictures have been taken of the book and all that sort of stuff. And basically what that said was that Hillary Clinton came up to me, and her words were, we're going to have the person that made the video that was responsible for the death of your son prosecuted. Okay. And, okay, as an administrative law judge, couple thousand witnesses a year I see. My job is to tell who's telling the truth and who isn't. So I'm a professional person that can tell the truth. As soon as she started talking, red lights, I knew that she wasn't telling the truth. But, I didn't think it was a big deal. I absolutely did not know that it was going to blow up the way it did. But I knew that she wasn't. I just thought, well, this is the way politicians talk. They never tell you the truth anyway. And so I wrote that down. Then afterwards, I don't know, a month or so later, or a couple months later, this thing blew up. And then I realized why it was such a big deal. But at the time, I didn't think anything of it.
What did Obama say to you?
Basically, yeah. Okay, he came around, kind of put my little arm around him, which didn't make the Secret Service people really. You just kind of patted him on the shoulder type. And he didn't say much. I thanked him for his service and like that. And he just basically, he kind of in a whining voice, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. And this really blew me away because I've met powerful people before who have that it factor. Mm-hmm. This guy was a dud. He didn't have the it factor at all. When he shook my hand, I thought, a masculine, shake of a hand, Instead, it was like shaking a dead fish. Okay. And then this little whiny deal, like a kid on the playground that got caught doing something wrong. I'm sorry. Wow.
Panetta?
That blew me away.
What did Panetta say?
Blew me away. His lack of sincerity. He wasn't sorry.
No.
He could have prevented it. He could have said, rescue.
Yeah.
General Ham's got assets immediately available in the area. Rescue. You don't need to, from thousands of miles away, send someone right off the coast. They had a cruiser. Okay. This is another hearsay thing. Okay. The military, they can rewind the clock and pinpoint every one of their assets 6 years ago. Mm-hmm. Okay. We live over here in Hawaii. We've got a big mango tree. A professional businessman was over here this last year during mango season. And I happened to mention the fact that I'd volunteered for the JAG Corps to kind of be next man up after Ty was killed. And, JAG Corps. He says, I have a guy that's working for me, and he worked as a paralegal for the JAG Corps on the court-martial of the captain of a cruiser, and I'd never even heard of a cruiser before. I guess it's a little bit bigger than a destroyer, that was right off the coast of Libya, who wanted to deploy the Tommy Hawk missiles that were on board. And it was like, whoa, I never heard about, this is kind of reminds me of General Ham.
Right.
There was
another person relieved of their command.
Of a cruiser. Now, this is a businessman. He had no axe to grind. In fact, he might even be liberal. He kind of probably is liberal. But he just happened to mention this. When we were talking JAG Corps. Oh, yeah, I have this person who worked for the JAG Corps as a paralegal on the court-martial of the guy in the cruiser. I said, what? I never even heard of a cruiser. And he explained, a cruiser's a little bit bigger than the destroyer. And, why? This is hearsay, but it's just as accurate or more accurate than some of the lies that have been told to us by Washington, D.C. I'd like to know, was there, in fact, a court-martial? Was there, in fact, a cruiser right off the coast of Benghazi? That's a port city, by the way. And was he court-martialed because he was hesitant to obey their orders not to rescue?
Charles, we spoke earlier about the sequence of events, and Ty and Glenn saved 35 people's lives by what they did.
Okay.
That's who they were. What's it? Pardon me?
That's who they were. They would lay down their life.
Right.
They were so honorable. They would lay down their life for the benefit of their friends.
Charles, have any of those?
Washington D.C. were that honorable.
I do too. And Charles, and we're gonna hold their feet to the fire till this happens. Charles, have any of those 35 people ever contacted you?
One did.
What did they say?
And he probably shouldn't have. Okay,
Why?
I have released his name publicly, on TV. But basically, he called up, and I shouldn't have done that. I apologize because I probably got him in trouble. But he said, the reason I'm calling you is because your son saved my life. And then
Charles, I don't understand why 35 people haven't called you up.
Well,
I don't understand why every relative of those 35 didn't call you up.
They had to sign non-disclosure agreements. I found that out later. And they'd probably lose their pensions. They'd probably be thrown in jail for a long period of time.
For telling the truth.
for telling the truth. And see, the truth will set you free.
Oh boy, you better believe
You
it.
should, okay. As a little kid, we're taught this little nursery rhyme. What a tangled web we weave when first we practice to deceive. Okay, the government should be known for telling the truth, not for telling the lies. And fortunately, we have someone else in the president's office right now who is an honorable man. I wish he'd been around 6 years ago. My son would still be alive.
I agree with you. Non-disclosure agreements. Charles, I have a feeling that there will be a number of those 35 people that see this interview. And I am going to say this. How a piece of paper and threats from a government that is no longer, by that I mean the Barack Obama administration, is preventing people from, one, calling you, and two, from coming forward and becoming a whistleblower and speaking about what really happened. Because
Okay,
I'll tell you something, Charles. I truly believe what happened at Benghazi ultimately led to the election of Donald Trump.
Oh, yes. Okay, let's deal with two subjects here. First of all, if there are some of those 30-some approximate people whose lives were spared because of Ty's action and the actions of the others, I would say this. It says, you may face some inconveniences. You may be prosecuted. You may be thrown in jail. You may lose your pension. But Ty was willing to lose his life to save your life. Mm-hmm. Are you willing to give up that inconvenience for the sake of the man who you wouldn't be here if he hadn't given his life for you?
Okay, and I truly believe the inconvenience that those folks would sustain would be minimal and very short-lived because
they would be heroes. And I think
that's right.
We have a president in office that can grant pardons that would stand up for them. That's the kind of honorable person we have in the Oval Office today.
Charles, there was a House Select Committee on Benghazi, and I believe they issued a report on June 28, 2016.
Yes.
When I read that report, there were some questions that were never answered.
Mm-hmm. That was cover-up. That was a cover-up report.
And the main questions, Charles, were exactly the ones you raised earlier. Who made the decision not to rescue those Americans?
Yep.
And why was that decision made?
I actually met with Trey Gowdy and some of the other people. They wanted each one of the families to, one member at a time, to come in and to speak to them. The Republican ones were there. The Democrats ones did not show up in that room. And that was the number one concern that I had, was the question that you just reiterated. Why was my son not rescued? Why is he not alive? Why does my grandson, who's 6 years of age, not have a father?
Charles, you asked, I'm sure, that same question to a number of lawmakers, a number of people of Congress, a number of people that sat on that committee. What did they tell you? Did they ever give you any insight?
Well, actually, what happened afterwards was that they had a very low-level lady, nice lady, but and they said, "This is who. If you have any questions after you read the report, you can talk to her face to face." So I went and I met with her, and lack of credibility. I asked questions.
Trey Gowdy, who chaired that. Trey Gowdy never spoke to you afterwards.
No, I mean, I've said hi to him, like in the hall or at a restaurant. I went over to his table and said hi to him. I've never spoken with him. The only one that I really have a relationship with is Jason Chaffetz, who I totally admire and whose credibility is beyond reproach.
So, Charles, let me run a scenario by you. There's a theory that the reason why a rescue mission was not implemented or made operational, and why the General Ham got essentially relieved of his command, and why reportedly there's this court-martial of a cruiser off the coast of Libya, was because the Obama administration was involved in some weapons running operation that was being run by Stevens. Stevens got cold feet. Stevens started to talk to people outside of the Hillary-Obama realm. They became concerned. They saw him as a loose end, and they decided that the way this was going to end was with an attack. And what they didn't count on was Ty Woods and Glenn Doherty being there and fighting off the enemy. Would that surprise you, that scenario?
It has been established. Actually, the weapons salesman, if you want to call it that, he basically has come forward and said that that's exactly what was happening. They were gathering literally a boatload full of weapons, shipping them over to Turkey, and then from Turkey shipping them to Syria, which was totally illegal, and everything else. And basically his career was totally destroyed after he became public. And, that's what they do to their political enemies. Anyway, so that's been established.
And when this attack was occurring, prior to Ty and Glenn dying, it's my understanding that Hillary Clinton sent an email to her daughter Chelsea speaking about two U.S. officials that had died, that essentially being Stevens and Sean Smith, while the attack was still ongoing, yet she sent that email to, I believe, a pseudonym that was actually Chelsea Clinton, which to me is classified information, sending that to her daughter. She sent that yet again, forces were not mobilized to save the 35 people that Ty and Glenn saved, plus Ty and Glenn.
Exactly. Yeah, and not only that, okay, that's one thing that came out during her testimony, which we were present at.
You were in the room when she came out with What Difference Does It Make?
Oh, yeah. And, no, not that one. The next one, when she testified for several hours in front of the committee in person. That was the first one. This was about a year later. And she was cross-examined by both Republicans and Democrats. And at that time, I think it was Jim Jordan that came out with it. I'd never heard about it. But there were two things. One was there was proof that she had emailed her daughter and said that this was an attack by a terrorist group. Okay, not a spontaneous,
not a YouTube-related event.
No one even watched. Mm-hmm. And then the second thing that was even more damaging was that she contacted the prime minister, the head of Egypt, and had said that this was a terrorist attack, and that it was not caused by the video. Okay, and both of these communications were done immediately after what happened. And so why did she change her story a couple of days later when she came to us at Andrews Air Force Base and basically told us something that she knew a couple of days before was not true, that it was the video and that she was going to arrest the person that was responsible for the video that caused my son's death.
Charles, is there anyone in Washington that still communicates with you and is dedicated to unearthing the truth?
No, and that's why I agreed to do this interview with you today. Okay, when there's a cover-up, there's a couple ways that you do a cover-up. One is by misinformation, which they did. That's just a polite word for not telling the truth. Misinformation. And then the other way that they do it is by the passage of time. Mm-hmm. People forget after time. But what's happened in this one is that misinformation has come back to bite them. Mm-hmm. Everyone knows that a certain person was not telling the truth, and got called on the carpet. That led to the investigation, which showed that emails had been destroyed. That led to the FBI investigation. That was one of the bricks in the wall that kept our country from going the wrong direction, kept our country from falling off the cliff.
Mm-hmm.
And Ty was a super patriot person. And if he had known that his death would have basically saved our country from going the wrong direction, it would have been worth it to him. And that's exactly what happened. Because instead of the passage of time causing it to be forgotten, it was like a snowball that started and then became an avalanche. And that avalanche hit right before the election, which was one of those things that caused the political pendulum to swing back the direction that Ty would have wanted it to swing.
Charles, there's a movement in Congress to honor those that perished in Benghazi. I believe it's now passed the House, the legislation.
It passed the House last year.
And do they now have to repass it in order for it to go to the Senate?
Well, it has to go to the Senate, and I don't know what the answer to that question is. Some other things for funding, if the House passed it, it died when the year became 2019. So I don't know if they're going to have to or not. I think as a matter of principle, Ty and the others should be awarded the Congressional Medal of Honor.
I agree.
They were not active military at the time, so they couldn't get, a military award. But Ty, he didn't want awards.
No.
I mean, he didn't even want people to know that he was a Navy SEAL.
Mm-hmm.
That wasn't why he was doing it.
Mm-hmm.
He just soon be anonymous. But I think just as a matter of principle, if anyone deserves it for giving his life to the of the country, he just definitely, and the others, deserve the Congressional Medal of Honor or whatever high award can be given. But it's nothing that he would desire.
Charles, do you believe that this is another way to open the door to get to the truth?
We have a president that anytime he wants to, he can declassify the information, and then we can get the truth. That's the only way we'll ever get it, is if they will declassify, give us the unredacted documents. Then we'll know the truth, and the truth will benefit this country.
Charles, as a physician, I've treated patients for over 30 years. And in my career, I saw a tremendous amount of heartache and sorrow. And what was amazing to me during my career is how, out of some of the most horrendous experiences in a family and gets dealt, is how some of those families deal with tragedy. Educate our listeners, when Ty's passed, what did your family do?
Okay. Let me tell you how our family dealt with this. Number one was forgiveness. Okay, I know where Ty's at, and this is just a 30-year interruption in our relationship. I want to see Ty one of these days, and because of that, I have to forgive everyone who was involved in this. You can tell that I've forgiven everyone. Okay, but the truth still needs to come out. Okay, that was one of the ways we dealt with it. The other way that we dealt with it is a lot of families will withdraw when they lose a loved one in the military. That's not the way our family works. It's next man up. Ty's son, Ty Jr., just out of high school, he called up the Navy, and I want to take my dad's place. Ty's brother, Jeremiah, immediately called up the Navy and said, "I'm a pre-med major. I want to be next man up." And he had a college scholarship for shot put, all that sort of stuff. He could have been a SEAL easily. But they said, "You're more valuable as a doctor. As soon as you get accepted to medical school, sign up for 12 years. And that's what he's done. He is now officially an officer in the Navy, attending medical school. He's signed up for a 12-year commitment. I was an administrative law judge. I immediately called up the Navy and said, "I'd like to be part of the JAG Corps. As an administrative law judge, I want to take my son's place and be next man up. Unfortunately, they said, we have an age requirement. I tried to get it waived, and I said, look, I just got through running a marathon on my 60th birthday. You waive the age requirement, I'm not worried about boot camp. Tried to get some people, Lindsey Graham, wonderful guy, to waive it. He's a JAG Corps, by the way, and couldn't do it. About the only person that could do it would be that fantastic president that we have sitting in the White House today. And that offer is still there. And the thing is, this would be such a great recruiting tool where we have families that are patriotic enough that when we lose a loved one, we don't put our tail between our legs, but we say, next man up. We believe in this country enough. Next man up.
Every one of our listeners has been inspired by you, your son, and your family. Next man up. What do each one of our listeners do to become next man up as part of your extended family?
We have a wonderful, wonderful country. God's blessed us with the greatest country in the world. Love your country. Protect it. Be thankful for it. That's all I can say. Be honest, too. Be honest. We don't need lies and jokes from Washington, D.C. We need the truth. We need men, women of integrity.
Charles, you are the highest integrity, as was your son. I thank you. I want to thank you for everything you've done, everything you are doing, and everything you will do. Ty's mission ended on that rooftop temporarily.
Ty's mission has not ended yet.
It's right. It's exactly it. And he's
that leg is still there.
The arms and legs of his mission on planet Earth is what you have done and what your family has done and will continue to do. And I thank you on behalf of not just every American, but every person of the world that values freedom and liberty. You have sacrificed a tremendous amount, as has your son and your family, but I can assure you it's a sacrifice that's not in vain, that is totally and 110% respected and honored by everyone that values freedom and liberty. And I thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Folks, I hope you'll become a surrogate of Charles Woods and of Ty Woods and their entire family. It's about putting everyone else's interests ahead of your own. Charles said it earlier in this interview. It's just such a crying shame that the people in Washington, frankly, the vast majority in Washington on both sides of the aisle, don't put other people's interests before their own. Hopefully that tide has turned, started to turn a little bit more in 2016 and will continue to turn for the years to come. But the only way we reach that promised land, if you will, is by 24/7 being the next man up. I thank you, Charles. I thank you, Ty. Until next time, Dave Gianna signing off. Dream big and dare to fail. Thanks for joining.